Hello and welcome to The Search. I'm Shahei Jurgen. Let's begin by reading Psalm 36. Psalm 36 for the director of music of David, the servant of Yahweh, verse 1. I have a message from God in my heart concerning the sinfulness of the wicked. There is no fear of God before their eyes. In their own eyes they flatter themselves too much to detect or hate their sin. The words of their mouths are wicked and deceitful. They fail to act wisely or do good. Even on their beds they plot evil. They commit themselves to a sinful course and do not reject what is wrong. Your love, Yahweh, reaches to the heavens, your faithfulness to the skies. Your righteousness is like the highest mountains, your justice like the great deep. You, Yahweh, preserve both people and animals. How priceless is your unfailing love, O God! People take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They feast on the abundance of your house. You give them drink from your rivers of delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light. Continue your love to those who know you, your righteousness to the upright in heart. May the foot of the proud not come against me, nor the hand of the wicked drive me away. See how the evildoers lie fallen, thrown down, not able to rise. We're going to look at this psalm and the next, Psalm 37, and the title of our study is The Righteous Will Inherit the Earth, Psalms 36 and 37. King David often struggled with a certain tension, a tension between the ideal of God's good world and the realities of his own lived experiences. David believed that Yahweh was a good God who was concerned about the plight of the oppressed, and in his divine justice would rescue those who trust in him while bringing down oppressors. However, David experienced injustice. He was often maligned and slandered, even though he was innocent of that which he was accused. He saw the rich and powerful plunder and destroy the poor. He had to flee his own home so that his enemies would not be able to kill him. When we read David's prayers, we see this tension. He could say, on the one hand, taste and see that Yahweh is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him. And yet, on the other hand, he could ask, why, Yahweh, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? The Psalms 34:8 and Psalm 10, verse 1. Now, Psalms 36 and 37 don't really represent this particular inner turmoil that David experienced. Rather, what we see in these songs is a reflection of the king's theological convictions. One might say that in Psalms 36 and 37, David is enraptured by the all-encompassing love of God, and he's filled with faith in the knowledge that Yahweh will eventually make all things right. This confidence in God provides David an opportunity to give some counsel for those who are struggling with the realities of life outside of Eden. And David really has a clear message of hopeful optimism that he's going to develop in these two Psalms, 36 and 37. Now, these psalms likely belong in the wisdom literary genre. Both of these poems are instructive from the perspective of a wise old teacher. Both of them make this famous contrast with the righteous on the one hand and the wicked on the other, which is very typical, especially in books like Proverbs. And in Psalm 37 in particular, we're going to see some practical wisdom for how to deal with the everyday problems and challenges of life. So, as wisdom literature, one thing we need to be careful of is not to push some of the statements in these Psalms too absolutely. For example, maybe you've heard this famous line, I was young and now I'm old, yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. This is from Psalm 37, verse 25. But this does not mean that the children of the righteous will absolutely never go hungry. I mean, righteous people throughout history have been persecuted, even tortured and killed. David is here speaking in the generalities of the wisdom tradition. So, in this way, he might illuminate the distinction between the two paths of living and counsel his audience to choose the path that follows Yahweh. That is really what wisdom literature is all about. Now, let's focus first on Psalm 36, where we're going to notice two distinct camps being described. Psalm 36 is really going to set the stage by identifying some key players. First, David's going to describe camp number one, which is the camp of the wicked. And then secondly, he'll introduce his audience to Yahweh, who is the leader of a second camp, which will include all those who take refuge in Yahweh. And at the end of this short psalm, we're going to see a transition from identifying these two camps, the wicked on the one hand and the righteous with Yahweh at the helm on the other. And that's going to then play out further in the drama that will be Psalm 37. So let's read Psalm 36 again, just the beginning of it, first 4 verses. Remember, this says, the superscript says, for the director of music of David, the servant of Yahweh. Verses 1 through 4. I have a message from God in my heart concerning the sinfulness of the wicked. There is no fear of God before their eyes. In their own eyes, they flatter themselves too much to detect or hate their sin. The words of their mouths are wicked and deceitful. They fail to act wisely or do good. Even on their beds, they plot evil. They commit themselves to a sinful course and do not reject what is wrong. Now, there is some uncertainty about how to translate the beginning of this psalm, with various versions reflecting this trouble. The NRSV says, transgression speaks to the wicked deep in their hearts, or wrongdoing speaks to the ungodly within his heart. That's the NASB 2020 version. The NLT says, sin whispers to the wicked deep within their hearts. Now, the very first word in this poem is the Hebrew word for oracle. And the question is about the nature of the oracle, the nature of the message being spoken. Most translations take this oracle as a message being spoken from sin, as this personified character, and that message is being spoken from sin into the hearts of the ungodly. But another option is that David is the one giving the oracle, and the oracle is about the nature of the wicked. And I think either way we translate it, really what follows is a vivid and tragic description of one who has rejected God entirely. The sinner's starting point is a lack of reverence for God. And once God has been rejected, the sinner's thoughts turn inward with self-flattery and self-deception. And finally, the sinner's wickedness is manifest in deceitful words, an absence of helpful contributions to the community, and a seemingly endless desire to harm and take advantage of others. In the next stanza, however, David contrasts the wickedness of the sinner with the faithfulness of God. Verse 5, your love, Yahweh, reaches to the heavens, your faithfulness to the skies. Your righteousness is like the highest mountains, your justice like the great deep. You, Yahweh, preserve both people and animals. How priceless is your unfailing love, O God. People take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They feast on the abundance of your house. You give them drink from your rivers of delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light. Yahweh's love, faithfulness, righteousness, and justice are infinite, boundless, and all-pervasive. God's loyal commitment to his people, his trustworthiness and fidelity to his word, his consistency in always doing what is right, and his desire to see a world of equity and fairness are the core characteristics of Yahweh's nature. These divine qualities are seen in how God preserves and protects both the human race and also the animal kingdom. Did you know that God's unfailing love, his chesed, is directed towards animals? The Edenic model of God's original design presents a beautiful harmony between humans and animals. Yahweh even commissioned Adam to name all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky as they were being paraded before him, and whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. Genesis 2:19. As God's image bearers, humans were given the task of shepherding God's creation to bring about flourishing. That means that the wanton destruction of the natural world and animal habitats goes against the will of God. God loves animals. After all, he created them. Now, having contrasted Yahweh and the wicked, David also mentions those who have taken refuge in God. He describes them as those who feast in his house, drink from his abundant and delightful rivers, and are guided by his light and life. I suspect that it's possible that these words from Psalm 36 inspired John to write about Jesus. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. John 1 and verse 4. At the conclusion of Psalm 36, we see a plea to God, which will ultimately then be further unpacked in Psalm 37. Verses 10 through 12 say, "Continue your love to those who know you, your righteousness to the upright in heart. May the foot of the proud not come against me, nor the hand of the wicked drive me away. See how the evildoers lie fallen, thrown down, not able to rise." The wicked do evil, Yahweh does good. The righteous try to do good as they seek Yahweh's own goodness. But of course, life is complicated and challenging, and the righteous need help. So the question which lingers at the end of Psalm 36 is this: what should the righteous do while they are surrounded by the wicked? And maybe a secondary question to add is, what is God going to do about all these wicked people and the wicked that they are doing? Psalm 37 comes in with answers to these questions. And really, the heart of the answer that Psalm 37 provides is this: God will fix it for us. Now, in many ways, Psalm 37 recalls the first psalm. You remember Psalm 1, where there's this description about those who delight in and meditate on Yahweh's Torah as being a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season and whose leaf does not wither. Psalm 1, verse 3. The law lover is contrasted in Psalm 1 with those wicked individuals who love to sit in the company of sinners and will therefore not stand in the judgment. But Psalm 1 doesn't really offer advice to the righteous about how to live while being surrounded by sinners. David, therefore, comes in Psalm 37 to offer some poetic wisdom of his own. Psalm 37 simply says, of David, verses 1 and 2, "Do not fret because of those who are evil, or be envious of those who do wrong. For like the grass, they will soon wither. Like green plants, they will soon die away." Continuing in verse 3, "Trust in Yahweh and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in Yahweh, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to Yahweh. Trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. Be still before Yahweh and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Refrain from anger and turn from wrath. Do not fret. It leads only to evil. For those who are evil will be destroyed, but those who hope in Yahweh will inherit the land. A little while, and the wicked will be no more. Though you look for them, they will not be found. But the meek will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity. The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. The wicked draw the sword and bend the bow to bring down the poor and needy, to slay those whose ways are upright. But their swords will pierce their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. Better the little that the righteous have than the wealth of many wicked. For the power of the wicked will be broken, but Yahweh upholds the righteous. The blameless spend their days under Yahweh's care, and their inheritance will endure forever. In times of disaster, they will not wither. In days of famine, they will enjoy plenty. But the wicked will perish. Though Yahweh's enemies are like the flowers of the field, they will be consumed. They will go up in smoke. The wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. Those Yahweh blesses will inherit the land, but those he curses will be destroyed. Yahweh makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. I was young, and now I'm old, yet I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. They are always generous and lend freely. Their children will be a blessing. Turn from evil and do good. Then you will dwell in the land forever. For Yahweh loves the just and will not forsake his faithful ones. Wrongdoers will be completely destroyed. The offspring of the wicked will perish. The righteous will inherit the land and dwell in it forever. The mouths of the righteous utter wisdom, and their tongues speak what is just. The law of God is in their hearts. Their feet do not slip. The wicked lie in wait for the righteous, intent on putting them to death. But Yahweh will not leave them in the power of the wicked, or let them be condemned when brought to trial. Hope in Yahweh and keep his way. He will exalt you to inherit the land. When the wicked are destroyed, you will see it. I have seen a wicked and ruthless man flourishing like a luxuriant native tree, but he soon passed away and was no more. Though I looked for him, he could not be found. Consider the blameless, observe the upright. A future awaits those who seek peace, but all sinners will be destroyed. There will be no future for the wicked. The salvation of the righteous comes from Yahweh. He is their stronghold in time of trouble. Yahweh helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them because they take refuge in him. Now, the core of Psalm 37's message is about the apparent success of the wicked. If God truly cares about justice, as he claims, why are sinners prospering? Now, this view is sometimes referred to as the retribution principle, the idea that one's prosperity is tied to one's reception of divine favor. Righteous people please God and therefore should be blessed with prosperity. Wicked people displease God and should therefore suffer consequences. The retribution principle can be seen in certain proverbs which talk about how hard work will result in gain, or how vices like drunkenness will lead to ruin. However, while these generalities are often true, the retribution principle is certainly not an absolute. Job's experience is Exhibit A in learning that even righteous people who work hard can suffer tremendous loss. So, what are we to make of all of this? I mean, in light of the fact that the retribution principle does not always hold true, and wicked people can prosper and righteous people can suffer because of the fallenness of the world as it is now, what does David say? What is his wise counsel? Well, if we take all 40 verses of this psalm and try to distill them down to a few key points, here's what we find. Essentially, 3 pieces of advice the aged King David has for living in the world as it is now. Advice number 1, don't give in to jealousy or anger. Several times we see this expression, do not fret. And the verb here literally means to burn up. The idea has to do probably with intense feelings of jealousy as one witnesses evildoers growing in wealth and power. This is the same word that was used to describe King Saul's angry jealousy when the young David was receiving more praise than he was in 1 Samuel 18 and verse 8. Don't give in to jealousy or anger. Number 2, David says, commit to doing good. Remember in Psalm 36, the first psalm we considered, the wicked never do good. They're never looking to help their community. In fact, doing good in this sense refers to acts of kindness, compassion, and charity. Feelings of anger and jealousy can't just be switched off. The Holy Spirit, however, can lead believers to channel their energy in another direction, if, of course, they will yield to His guidance. The channel for that energy is found in helping others, especially those who have been victims of the oppression which allowed these evildoers to get rich in the first place. Don't give in to jealousy or anger. Rather, channel your energy to acts of service, to doing good. And thirdly, David says, trust and hope in God. Trust and hope in God. Craig offers this insight. In the short run, the wicked seem to prosper, whereas the righteous very often seem to suffer at their hands. But it is the longer run that counts. And in the long run, the only true satisfaction is to be found in the righteousness, which is the hallmark of the one who lives in relationship with the living God. The motive is not entirely self-interest, though that may be a part of it. Rather, it's a question of determining the God-given purpose in human life and then living in accord with it. That is the essence of life and the essence of morality. Now, letting go of anger and jealousy through the discipline of doing good to others, why, this is in perfect keeping with God's own character. God forgives sin. He pardons evildoers, and He becomes a deliverer and refuge for those who trust and hope in Him. This is one of the ways that God's image bearers can live out their purpose in the world. One of the ways we become like God and represent Him on the earth. Speaking of the earth, throughout Psalm 37, there is a frequent refrain regarding the reward that's in store for those whose trust and hope are in Yahweh. Trust in Yahweh and do good, dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture, verse 3. Those who hope in Yahweh will inherit the land, verse 9. But the meek will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity, verse 11. Those Yahweh blesses will inherit the land, verse 22. Turn from evil and do good, then you will dwell in the land forever, verse 27. The righteous will inherit the land and dwell in it forever, verse 29. And verse 34. Hope in Yahweh and keep His way. He will exalt you to inherit the land. Remember how in Psalm 36, we learn that God's love moves Him to protect animals. Well, the same is true for the earth. The word that's translated land throughout this psalm is the same word that's translated earth in Genesis 1 and verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, or the skies and the land. Psalm 37 is echoed, of course, in one of Jesus' own Beatitudes. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth, or the land. Matthew 5 and verse 5. God loves His creation, and He does not intend to discard it. Like us, His fallen image bearers, humans, God seeks to redeem and restore that which has been broken by sin. And thus, believers must acknowledge that until the restoration of all things is accomplished, sin will continue to do great harm to nature, to animals, to humanity. However, those who trust in God have two sources of comfort to lean upon in difficult times. Number one, that God is bringing about his restoration so that in the end, his glory, goodness, and justice will cover the earth as water covers the sea. And two, that those who trust and hope in God will enjoy that eternal bliss with him as inheritors of the land. But in the meantime, right now, there is work to do. And again, David says that work involves three important things: not giving in to jealousy or anger, committing ourselves to doing good, and always trust and hope in God. Hope in Yahweh and keep his way. He will exalt you to inherit the land. God bless us to do his will. Thanks for being here for this study. Come back and join us next time as we continue through the Psalter.